Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. From the perspective of many millennials, there is no race problem in America. That baby boomers and Gen Xers need to get over it and learn to get along with everyone. After all, millennials are more likely to have friends from all races and ethnicities and expect diversity and inclusion in all aspects of their lives. But is it really true? Are millennials colorblind? Do they really believe we are a post-racial society? Up next on Another View, meet millennial podcasters Jackie Glass and Christina Kimbrough. Their podcast is called Your Neighbor's Hood, and they have a lot to say about race in America. Another View will be right back.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We have a jam-packed show today, including hearing from a pair of millennial podcasters about their take on race in America. But first, we're going to talk with the Virginia Beach Police Department about their recruitment efforts, particularly of people of color. Now, that may seem a bit strange considering the often strained relationship between police and the Black community, but I firmly believe that if we want to change, then we have to be on the inside. We have to be at the table to affect organizational change, and what better way to improve police relations than to become a police officer? Joining me by phone is Sergeant Rudy T. Carrera, Virginia Beach Police Department. Hello, Sergeant Carrera. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. So you are actually actively recruiting people from neighborhoods of color. Is that correct?
We are. Yes, we are. We have a special event, our first one in the community ever, scheduled for December 8th.
Okay. And tell me how you got to this point that you're actually, doing this recruitment in this way.
Well, I've always been part of the recruiting team in the department, and I just started overseeing the program here recently in February of this year. There has been an ongoing relationship with the community members in Western Bayside area and other areas as well. It's a meeting that they had every month, and we call it the Pastors Roundtable. So it started with a lot of the clergymen from the local churches and parishes, and they would be at the meetings, and we'd have our chief would be there, our deputy chief, and our captains of the commands would attend as well. And it initiated to start the dialogue and think of ways that we can improve our relationship with the community. Gotcha.
Okay. So tell us exactly where this recruiting effort is going to be and what should people expect there?
Okay. Well, we typically do one expo a year at our academy, but this time we decided it'd be a great idea to try it and do it within the community. So in Western Bayside, like I said, it's going to be at the Family Life Center, which is going to be at 5685 Herbert Moore Road. It's right off of Baker Road. It's by two churches, so it should be easy to find.
Okay. And what time?
And it starts at 10 a.m. So we advertise, we've been promoting the event from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., but we've learned in the past from other expos, we'd like everybody who's a possible applicant or who's interested in profession here to come at 10 o'clock so they won't miss the welcoming from the chief. Okay. And what are some of the criteria you're looking for? Well, our criteria is the same requirements that we require, but you have to be at least 20 years of age to apply, but you have to turn 21 before you graduate from the academy. So academy is typically about 6 months long, so if you're 20 and a half and you get hired, you should be okay as long as you turn 21 before you retire. You become a certified police officer. Okay. You got to be a U.S. citizen, which is a major requirement, and then you have to be eligible to obtain a Virginia or North Carolina driver's license. Those are the three major requirements that we require. So if you were talking to a group of young African-American males in particular, what would you tell them is a good reason to become a police officer? Well, a lot of people have a perception of the police department of being one way because of what we see on TV and some of the things that happen in the communities. And what I'd have to say to them is if we want to recruit from within the communities so that we can have them help us become part of the change. Instead of people looking at us at one way and have certain perceptions of us, we'd rather recruit them and have them become part of our organization so that they can help affect the change and be positive.
Okay. All right. Tell us once again where it's going to be held and the date and so forth.
Okay, so the expo will be on December 8th, and it's going to start at 10 a.m. and will last until 1 p.m. It's going to be at 5685 Herbert Moore Road, and that's the Family Life Center. It's within the Western Bayside area of Virginia Beach. And this is our first planned one, and hopefully we'll do some more in other areas of the city as well.
Okay, and what's the phone number, or how can people find out more information?
They can call us here at the Academy. I work straight out the Police Academy, and my number is 385-7021.
Okay, 385-7021. That's 757-385-7021. 7021. All righty. Thank you very much. That is Sergeant Rudy Carrera, Virginia Beach Police Department. They're taking their recruiting efforts into the community, and we wish you the very best of luck in that effort. All right. Thank you so much. Take care now.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. So they are both from the Midwest. They have traveled the world thanks to the United States Navy. They are both millennials. They are both podcasters. They have a lot in common, and there are a lot of differences because one is African American and one is white. Please welcome the creators of the podcast Your Neighbor's Hood, Ms. Jackie Glass. How you doing, Jackie?
Hello.
And Ms. Christina Kimbrough.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, so good. Thank you for having us here.
We are. I'm so excited about you guys being here.
We're glad. Let me first say, I'm an elder millennial.
She's on the end.
So she's close to the end. You're closer to the Gen Xer than the millennial, right? An elder millennial. Although I have to tell you, ladies, that you all are the first ones to actually come in, sit down in our studio, pick up your phones, and actually put us out there into the universe.
Wow.
Live while we're live.
Gotcha.
So
it's a part of our daily lives. That's just kind of what we do. We share our show with our, via our phones.
Well, we love that because we recognize that you are the next generation. Yes, you are. So I want to get into, first of all, how the two of you connected. What's your story? How did the two of you come together?
For sure.
You want to start, Jackie, and then we'll go to Christina?
I love how you say it. We met online. Like most millennials.
We did. We met online.
Yeah, through an organization called Vote, Run, Lead. It's committed to getting women to be involved in civics and possibly run for office. So Christina one day in the closed group said, hey, is there anybody in Norfolk? Surprisingly, there was someone in Norfolk. And we just bonded a couple times over coffee, and I finally took up the challenge to run for office here in Norfolk, and I asked Christina to be my campaign manager.
So you ran for school board? I
did. I ran for the school board here in Ward 3. It was amazing. Well, great, we have our first fully elected school board. It was an amazing adventure. Yeah. We ran, because I feel like when you have a campaign manager the way I did, it was definitely a partnership, and I felt like we were running in stride together. And her co-campaign manager, my son.
Her son. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you were not successful in winning the campaign, but you guys say that it taught you a lot.
Yeah.
What were you hearing, Christina, on the campaign trail?
Yeah, so there was a lot of things like, for example, there were doors that I couldn't knock or shouldn't knock. That was a very strange experience because her ward is primarily African American. And so as being a white campaign manager, there was a learning curve for me just because there were things that I didn't know, or things that I would say that might be ignorant that I didn't know because I had grown up primarily white, right? And they were uncomfortable. And that's our tagline in our podcast is uncomfortable race or conversation, specifically about race. And we would sit on her kitchen floor for hours and just talk. And they were very relevant conversations because then I would take them to my friends and family, and they were like, really? Oh, I didn't know, stuff like that. And so that's how the podcast was born.
So before we get to the podcast, I want to go back to, would people actually say to you, don't knock on this door or you can't be in this community?
So what we had was experiences where I would have people be like, what are you and that white girl doing?
Right.
How you sending that white girl, out there like that? And it was like, yeah, I am actually. But we were very fortunate to have young youth that looked like the community that were willing to walk with her. But yeah, we've dealt with conversations about why are you working for a black woman? Someone
Oh yeah,
asked you.
absolutely. Older gentleman here asked me that. Why are you going to that part of town? Why are you doing that? And it was just a very loaded question. He didn't come out and say, what the racist. I thought it was racist, but he wouldn't come out and say it. It was just like a very uncomfortable conversation for me. And I didn't know why he was asking that. It was kind of strange. And so Jackie, there was a lot of explaining that we had to do, and there was some distrust, I think, that I had to learn, like, what were my intentions as a white woman running a African Americans campaign. And that was so weird to me, because I knew genuinely my intentions. I was so excited for my friend. I'm here for her. So it was very different to hear that someone might think I had nefarious intentions.
Wow. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, but it's just interesting. And it's sad that I'm not surprised. I mean, because that just kind of reflects where our country is. But as the two of you continue to meld, well, first of all, let me ask you this, because both of you have military experience.
Yes.
Were you surprised that people reacted the way they did, or because the rap is that the military gives you this well-rounded kind of experience where you are about everyone, or did it surprise you?
So I was active duty for 11 years, and I've been black my whole life. So no, it didn't surprise me. And you have to understand too, the military is its own culture and its own world with its own set of challenges. So while on active duty, it was no surprise that I too had to deal with racism within my own community, which most communities are, unless they're supply or cooks, typical service jobs like right on the outside,
you would have on the outside,
like on the outside, that they're predominantly white males, and yes, so it was normal. I even remember an instance where we had a guy who decided he was just going to hang a noose from his car window, but because he felt like he could, and I would encourage even. PBS did a special on the boat that I was on, and they tackled racism called Carrier a while back. And there's a whole episode about a gentleman who was racist, wasn't afraid to say it, had black friends, and I'm putting air quotes, and had to struggle with that challenge. So no, it wasn't a surprise to me, because just the same things we have in the civilian world, we have them in the military world. But the difference is there's a sense of camaraderie that if there's an emergency, we just snap to. It doesn't matter what you look like, how you do it, what you believe in. We've got a job to do together. And that's not necessarily the case on the outside.
What about you, Christina?
I would say it did surprise me. I am a military spouse. My husband's in the Navy, and his experience, we have not had a diverse experience. I have not lived overseas, but I've lived in a couple different states, different cultures. But we hang out with primarily white people. I mean, it's not here or there. It wasn't by choice. It's just that's his command is primarily white, right? And so my husband's heard racist things said because it's primarily white. So for me, I haven't had that. Now, again, I can't speak for everyone, but I have not had that diverse experience.
So this is interesting. So if you're in the company of these folks and they say something that you might consider racist, do you speak up, or do you go, I don't want to cause my husband drama because he's got to rise through the ranks too?
So I always bring the authenticness and the realness. No, I haven't. I wish I could. I wish that I was brave enough. I do now, but I'm in the past. I have not. I call them courageous conversations. Because you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to be. Yeah. I'm already. I'm already pretty liberal and democratic. So in the spaces that I walk into, I'm the liberal feminazi.
Okay, gotcha.
So here's me also. Bringing up these conversations, and it's been hard. I mean, I didn't know. I wish I would have spoken up, and I always try to be authentic. I wish I could tell you I had, but.
So do you guys remember the first conversation that the two of you had about race between the two of you?
Yes, and I'm already sweating. I'll say it. This is important.
It's important.
It's important.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we knock like 8,000 doors. So you're always knocking doors. I was by myself this time just knocking, and there was this really cute kid sitting on his porch eating a bag of chips. And he's like 9. And he asks me, he says, what's a school board? And I thought that was really cool, that a 9-year-old, what's that do? Could that help me? Can I vote? And so he was really engaging me in civics. So I came back really excited because I talked to him for like a half an hour about school board. Most kids don't care, like that's really cool. And I said to Jackie, I was like, wow, this little boy was so well spoken. And he was African American. I had no idea that was something that could be offensive. And again, I learned this term, that intent versus impact, so my intention was great and she knows that. But my impact was not, hearing it. So she graciously explained to me, you probably shouldn't say that.
Like that.
Go ahead.
Very gracious.
Tell me what you said.
So part of what I said is that the reason why I'm bringing this to the table is because we are a representation of each other. And I know that it is my responsibility to give her an understanding of this community that she's coming into. And I said, well, here's how it's perceived, right? When you tell him, when you say it and the way you say it, right. it makes it seem like that is unnatural for a child that looks like him. Where you might mean well, as a parent, I've been offended many a times when I've heard European Americans say to my son, he's so well-spoken, what else would you expect? And so I had to tell her that there's a double-edged sword with saying something like that. And a bunch of different things. And she's like, well, I wouldn't even know. And I couldn't. For me, it was. I feel like ignorance is a part of many people's lives. And at that point, she was ignorant to those things, right, Christina?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the beauty of it is that ignorance can be filled with knowledge, that we can fill a knowledge gap. And we did that. Yep. And I took every situation that we went through as I am filling a knowledge gap. Now, you get to make a choice. Christina gets to make a choice what she does with it. But if I don't feel that...
accepts it or not, or listens or not. Yeah.
But who am I? Again, I would be wrong if I did not say, you want to be in this, you're in this community, you're doing this work with me, and that we don't take too kindly to that. You know what I mean?
I want to set for people because they can't see you right now.
Right.
But you live in Ward's Corner, Christina, yes. If I'm not mistaken, and you live in Ballantyne. Yep. Okay, so that people who are from Norfolk will understand that Ballantyne is a predominantly African American community, right. And Ward's Corner is
it's actually pretty mixed.
Pretty mixed.
It depends on where. Okay. Ward's Corner has the big, really nice houses, and we're in like the middle income. So I do have a pretty mixed street, at least my street. I'm new to the area, so that I don't know all the streets. Mine's pretty mixed.
Right. Okay. So just so that people get a sense
sure.
of what you're talking about, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Are our millennials too idealistic, or are they realistic? What do you think? And what kinds of experiences have you had, particularly if you're a millennial, in terms of race in America? 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Okay, so Jackie, you got to explain a situation to Christina about why she probably shouldn't say he's so articulate. Christina, what was the lesson you had to teach Jackie about being white?
I know so many, but I want you to think of one.
That's a great, I think a lot of it was just how, I always say this and people might get upset, but that's all right. It's never underestimate the ignorance of a white person as regards to race, not ignorance of white people. Mm-hmm. Because our experience is so segregated. It's not just church. It's literally, that's the power of our name, is our neighborhoods are segregated, right? So for me, I can't speak for you, but I think that was part of it, was that my ignorance, right? And I have the best intentions and I'm trying to learn. And there's still things that I just don't know. So that's what I would say. Would you agree?
I would totally agree.
Right.
Is that oftentimes living in the spaces that I live in, it's like, you should know that. You know what I mean? Like, I have the expectation that European Americans would understand our culture because we've lived in this country together. Mm-hmm. But they don't have to. They have the luxury right. of separating themselves for what my culture looks like, unless it's on the news or it's in some video or something. So when they don't know things, I'm like, why? You know what I mean? We've been here long enough, but why? Mm-hmm. And she says, don't underestimate the ignorance. And so it allowed me to grant grace in the sense of when I'm coming to the table and having these conversations, rather than be defensive about it. So that has been a huge piece of me maturing in the race conversation and about learning how to come from a place of love on the inside and outside.
Has there been a conversation where the two of you kind of had to take a break? Because
I think so.
Because it was just that deep.
Yeah, do you want us to share it?
Sure, that'd be great.
For the Delta conversation?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I had an incident with Delta. I was, and I.
As in the airline?
The airline, right?
Okay. All right, we'll leave it at the airline.
Yeah,
okay,
we'll leave it. You said it. I didn't want to say the company.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
No problem.
Where there was a flight, my seats had been taken, and it was just a whole debacle. And we were, my whole family was standing at the back of the plane. And this lady, the flight attendant, immediately walks up to me and says, "Now, I don't want a problem." Like I don't want a problem. Like, isn't that what she said? If I go to, you see, I keep these little notes because I was in my seat digesting everything that just happened. I don't want a problem. If you're going to give me a problem, then I'm going to send you off the plane. Before she even asked you what was going on, or why you weren't seated. Before she even, that's what I was met with. And I already was going through a rift with my husband, so I had to check my feelings. He don't travel with kids. He don't understand what that means. And so I'm like, well, why'd you come at me like that? And so there was this whole figuring out that there was a person on the plane that was being escorted by the marshals, blah, 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 blah. They were in our seats. And I was upset, like emotional in my seat, just trying not to cry because it's like, why do you have to come for me? Like, really, what? And I was telling Christina the story and how, we got 40,000 miles, all this good stuff. And I was like, why would she, I was upset. And your response initially.
Yeah, so this is our work. So we try to do that where we're sharing with each other very honestly, and she's encouraging me to share. I was like, why do you have to make it about race? That was my honest first, you don't know that this person was racist. She could have been having a terrible day, you know what I mean? And she came at you unprofessionally. No one's denying that. But to deem her racist, or to deem that she was looking at you, in a racist term, or because you were Black, that didn't seem fair to me. And so I shared that with her, and it was awkward because, obviously for me, I can't come to that. I didn't live that experience. So it's hard for me to come to the same conclusion. I don't think I ever will. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not invalidating her experience. It's just that that's very hard for me. I don't get it. To accept
that it was race right from the back.
And part of that conversation, when we were having it, and Christina was doing the nod, like, yeah, girl. And I was like, nah.
That's not how you feel.
No, that's not. I could see, you know what I mean? Because we've gotten good at reading each other. But I also had to explain to Christina is that one thing I know this woman cannot ignore, and that I walk in every day, is my skin. Right. And I know that my skin has been criminalized and has been stereotyped and has been, so many things has been done to my skin. And there's nothing else because I didn't do anything, but I know I'm Black.
Yeah. Sure.
And so
I have to tell you, Jackie, I can empathize with that perspective because there have been so many times where in my career, I've been the only. Yeah. Okay. And people have said things or done things, and because you haven't done anything wrong, that the only reason is because of the skin color, because you can't get rid of it. You know?
It is what it is.
I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. It's exactly what it is.
And I know it's been criminal skin, but we took a break. We actually took away from it, but then we came back to it.
Absolutely.
And made it into a whole episode.
But that's what we're trying to model here is a friendship that's authentic. Because here's the thing. When I got my first job out of school, I was a minority. Actually, I worked for the city of Cleveland. And I had many friends that were African American, but we did not talk about any of this. And so with her, it's a very in-depth conversation because we're friends. And I like to show that you can survive. I'm like, she still loves me, at the end of the day. And that's really, for me, if I could model or teach anyone anything, that's what it would be.
So I want to get you guys' reaction. I know we got some phone calls coming up soon, too. By the way, let me give the number again, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So I moderated a population health summit this week. And the keynote speaker had, in her remarks, said that, asked the question, how many people in the audience believed that it was a moral imperative that everyone have equity, health equity, meaning a just opportunity to be healthier? How many people believe that's a moral opportunity? So hands go up. And then they said, how many people believe it's a business opportunity? And another set of hands went up. Well, and then she put up another slide. So millennials, baby boomers, Gen Xers think of it as a moral imperative. Millennials think of it as a business, meaning diversity, inclusion, equity, looking at it from more of a business perspective, because they recognize that if you have diversity, if you can be bigger, stronger, faster, you can do things better. Yeah. So is that how you guys view diversity, inclusion, equity, everyone coming together? And does that equate to a post-racial society?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I would say I do look at it from that perspective because I got excited about the midterms because we had the most diverse, it was women elected ever. And so when you're not seeing like different voices, you're missing a whole swath of the country, right? So it's exciting to me. I think, yes, see it in business and I think there's power in that.
Okay, Jackie.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think morally, you said, the lady said it on this show last week. She was talking about how
Natalie
health,
Burke is her
yes,
name.
health
Yes.
is just,
And she was the one who was making the presentation.
look, it's what we come to this planet with. So morally, we do have an obligation to ensure that we are healthy people, right? And then from the business side, Christina said it, how I would say it is that if you really truly want to grow something beautiful, something good, then you're going to make sure it is indicative of the world around us.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about race in America from a millennial perspective with podcasters Jackie Glass and Christine Kimbrough. Their podcast is Your Neighbor's Hood. I'm Barbara Ham Lee, and you're listening to Another View. Let's talk to Jacques in Virginia. Jacques in Virginia. How are you?
Hi, it's actually Jacques.
It is Jacques. Okay.
Yes.
How are you, Jacques?
Yes,
I understand
I'm doing fine.
you're a trucker. Is that correct? Are you on the road?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you for listening.
Not a problem. I listen to NPR all the time when I can get it on these radio stations. But I was listening to you guys' interview, and I just think that it's so beautiful what these two young ladies are doing. And I'm 57 years old. I was raised in Chicago, and I would love to have seen something like this going on when I was coming up.
Wow, that's fantastic. I will let them respond to you, Jacques, and safe travels to you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
respond.
Well, I'm from Chicago.
Jackie's from Chicago. There you go. Okay.
I think first I want to say thank you first, but I think there were things like this when I was growing up going on, but there weren't. We're still in silos. We're still as living in the world like my mother lived in, where Black folks are talking to Black folks, European Americans folks are talking to European American folks, and we're just trying to do it. So all it takes is being intentional.
Right. And thank you for that.
It's never too late.
Right.
You
It's
know what
never
I'm
too
saying?
late. Never too late. And I thank you for that because it means a lot because this is hard. You can't get around it. It's awkward, but there's so much power in it. Because like I always say this, we're talking about race in silos. So when you can bring it together and see another view. It's just powerful, and we can create a more equitable society for all of us, but that takes being able to break through those conversations. And like I said, a lot of millennials, we still aren't doing it, right? So we invite people into this conversation.
So what do the two of you think when you see a Charlottesville as an example? I mean, how do you, from your millennial perspective, reconcile that with what you're trying to do and what I would assume you think a lot of your friends may be doing or not?
Yeah. So I think from the white perspective, because that's all I can speak from, is that we were surprised. I know we actually interviewed a former neo-Nazi.
Wow.
Yeah.
On the podcast.
On the podcast. And that was such an eye-opening experience. He had lived in Oregon, and so it was like 90% white. So he had never, and he's our age, right? Mm-hmm. He had never lived amongst communities of color, and he had dealt with some addiction issues and then went into a program. And he said that once he'd made friends with communities of color and saw, hey, we're struggling the same, right? Like we're the same. It changed his whole worldview. So I think for me, it shocked me. I had no concept that things were this bad.
Jackie, what did you think?
I mean, I coming from a place where I've seen gang violence and things like that. It's not a surprise because I look at the organizations that young man is affiliated with and what they're doing as just a different form of gang violence. Because I think when I say gangs, I think people see chocolate skin, and but for me, when I see what he's doing, it to me it looks like it reminds me why my grandmother is a refugee from the South that was fleeing terror through the Great Migration. You know what I mean? It is just a reminder for me when I see folks doing that, because I know it's not going to go away. And I know that there will always be people out there that will never want to have anything to do with anyone that's non-white. ever. And I don't expect to reach those people. But the expectation is that there are more folks coming to the table that just don't know how, don't have access, because that's the thing nowadays. It's not about just having things. It's about having the access to people that don't look like them. They're living in towns, and to me, I feel like we're doing part of that work by podcasting and meeting people where they are and letting them have conversations with people that don't look like them. So no, those types of things are not a surprise, and I won't be surprised when something else happens. Well, I'm not, right? Because we just had a guy get shot in the mall in Georgia. So that it just reminds you of the trauma that the community goes through. And unfortunately, it was a European American young woman that passed away. But I know that there were folks, freedom riders that were doing, we're all in this hustle, and we just want to keep those people encouraged.
There was a survey that was just done this year called Gen Forward Survey. It's the first of its kind nationally representative survey of over 1,750 young adults from the ages of 18 to 34. And as we were talking about Charlottesville and neo-Nazi groups and so forth. And something that jumped out from the survey to me was the fact that the view on Black Lives Matter, okay? And it says that the majority of African Americans, 56%, and plurality of Asian Americans, 43%, have a favorable opinion of Black Lives Matters, but only 27% of Latinas and 19% of whites share this view. And they compared Black Lives Matter to to neo-Nazis groups, and so the columnist Jonathan Capehart wrote in his article, he says, quote, "So a slim majority of white millennials believes blacks protesting police-involved shootings of unarmed African Americans is not very different from white supremacists marching through a town chanting, 'Jews will not replace us,' and the Republic Nazi-era blood and soil while protesting the removal of a Confederate general statue." What do you guys think about that comparison and the fact that there would be so many people who would put that group in the same light?
So again, we just learned, because we just interviewed a sociologist who this is her work, is she studies the criminalization of Black activists over time. And I had no idea, again, learning that it's happened, and it's happened. They've been targeted in jail, right? So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me based on history, and things have changed. But again, there was that white privilege where I didn't have to know that. Jackie?
I would say when people do those sorts of things, I look at it like this. I've never seen a Black Lives Matter movement go to a town and terrorize European American people. When has that happened? I'm just having this conversation with my husband. Like, when has that happened, that they've gone to a specific town and went there solely to put fear in European American folks?
Actually, in the Black Lives Matters marches, they are interracial.
Yeah.
Right.
There are whites and blacks marching together.
But I can tell you.
And Latinos and Asians and everyone else.
Yeah. But we can see over time where the KKK has gone to towns with the sole purpose of terrorizing people that did not look like them. So to compare those two it is ridiculous, and it does go back to the fact of, we understand from history, because we talk about getting close to history, that folks that are able to control narratives, whether it's the FBI or it's the news, can control and create a narrative about a group, and it be so because the news said it so, because because I get upset. But what I'm saying is that I think that's ridiculous, because Black Lives Matter is not hanging folks. They're not out there killing folks. They're not out there trying to set up, be a part of institutional racism. What they're trying to say is that you've got to value my skin. You got to value me. And I think part of the thing that's scary about them is that they're doing it with the pen too. There are folks doing it with the pen. So
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Mark joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Mark. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. By the way, I'm happy to hear your voice.
Thank you.
I'm a New York white liberal that's been transplanted with people with family all over the country. One of them is in Florida, and is unfortunately a deep bigot. I just wanted to say that my great-grandparents' generation we grew up Jewish, and my great-grandparents' generation, there's the word black is schwarze in Yiddish. And it took so long for that word to die out from people I know. And that generation is gone, thank heavens. And we still have a lot of work. And, being from New York and having a liberal upbringing and stuff, I'm so disgusted when I see stuff down here. And I can't wait for all the statues to come down. But I just want to say there is hope. It's going to be with the millennials and the other people. So, I'm a baby boomer, so I'm probably out of it now.
Thank you, Mark, for the call. We appreciate that.
He ain't out of it.
Go ahead.
He ain't out of it because
Jackie.
he's got folks that he goes out to check his mail that probably need Mark to holler at him a little bit.
Yeah, so this is interesting. We've had live events, and we had a 60-year-old woman come, and she said she felt like she'd been living in the dark for so many years, and then being introduced to this event and our work, she felt like she was walking in the light. So what Jackie says, it is never too late. And in fact, I would challenge white people that it doesn't matter how old you are. My grandma and I are just starting to have race conversations.
I was going to ask you about that. So
absolutely.
Tell me how you approached your grandmother about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of, I've learned this term white fragility, and that can anger some people, but it's we get defensive when we talk about anything about race. So a lot of white people will say, again, we think we live in a post-racial society. We think that, I've heard things, people say, well, they're doing better, right? Referring to the African. What are you talking about? Because they don't have that lived experience. They don't have friends of color. So I would say when I approach that conversation, it's hard. And I always come with authenticity as well. I've had white fragility in these conversations. There's times where I'm triggered, maybe dramatic, but where my defenses are up. But then I always say this, stay open and stay curious, because you cannot do this work as a white person if you don't.
Wow. Yeah. You guys are incredible. I just love listening to the two of you talk about it. So some of the things that you talk about are fun things.
Yeah.
So give us an example of something fun that you've had to teach each other.
We're already excited. Go.
Okay, because something I learned from Christina, I learned about dry shampoo. I had no idea what dry shampoo, and I'm so
dry shampoo. For
dry
those
shampoo.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did an episode where she read an Essence and Ebony magazine, and I read a Cosmo and Glamour magazine. Something we have both never done. Right. Okay. And so we swapped. Yep. We swapped culture that way, and I was like, dry shampoo, girl, what is that? And like, how does it work? Right. And how? I still don't get it. Christina has promised me one day that she's going to come to my house and use some dry shampoo. Yep.
Oh, good luck with that one. I want to see how that works with your hair. Okay, Christina, explain what dry shampoo is.
Yeah, okay.
For those who may not be familiar.
Sure, it's kind of gross, but when your hair, a lot of girls, like white girls, obviously, if your hair gets dirty and you're too lazy to wash it, it's just like aerosol that you spray in your roots, and it's white, and then you brush it out, and it soaks up the grease.
Okay.
What?
We don't want it. So we want grease in our hair. We don't want it.
Okay, so I didn't know that. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean?
So
I had no concept. So hair's always
I showed
fun.
her what we call a white girl brush was.
That cracked me up. It's a paddle brush. It's like just like a. I was
you
like,
know what a white girl brush is?
Yeah. Yes, I know what a white girl brush is.
I didn't know it. I didn't know that's what it was called.
We had a girl on that was good at. Yeah, we talk about that. We talk about pet culture, how whites and blacks deal differently with their pets, and we've had a lot of fun. We try to keep it light because we know it can be really heavy. Yep. But we also understand that sometimes through laughter you can tackle some other things. And it gives you a value or an appreciation for it. Yeah, y'all different, we different, but we all good.
Yeah. So the two of you met because you found common ground in politics. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But suppose there are people out there listening to us now who don't have a way to connect with a person of another color from their race or different from who they are. Yeah. How would you suggest they move into this space and be able to find somebody who is brave, because both of you are very brave, because your friendship has probably taken a beating and gotten stronger because both of you were willing to let that happen. Yeah. But a lot of people aren't necessarily willing.
That's a great question. I think it takes being open, like I said, and I think it takes work. I mean, relationships are work. So you have to be aware of that. You have to understand. I always say this, sit in the awkward. Our cultures are different. They just are. And so it doesn't have to be white, black either. It can be you're going to have differences. So it's just, as a white person, staying open to that. And again, politics brought us together, but at the end of the day, we're people. So you're going to have you're going to bond with someone. She's into things that I'm into. You know what I mean? Race doesn't make a difference between sports, music. We're all into something like that. So bonding over those things and realizing that sometimes awkward conversations around race will pop up, but it's not avoiding it.
And I would say when we were looking at trying to bring people to the table, and it was suggested to us, well, there's a certain sides of towns that have, Hispanic restaurants that are, you can go and eat where the people in our own backyard, specific cultures are, and then build a relationship with the people that are doing the things there. Or you can go to other sides of town, and if you don't have other sides of town, there's always literature that can connect you. Pick up a book by somebody that doesn't look like you, and read. Go buy art and appreciate art from someone that does not look like you. So there's a way to get in spaces, without having to really jump to.
Yeah, if I can add to that, because I've heard this as I grew up in Ohio, and my friends are like, well, I can't just go up to a black person and say, will you be my friend?
Will you be my friend?
You know what I mean? Unless it grows authentically and organically. So I think we're always about practical action steps. I know that when I started doing this work, I scrubbed all my social media feeds. So I started going through Instagram and Twitter and being like, how many people of color do I even follow?
She was like, girl.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that millennial part of it too. Of
Same here.
I hear it all the time.
Same on the other side.
How many
white people do you follow?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I don't have. I had a good amount, but just not enough to make it. It wasn't diverse enough for me, but I had to make that call. She actually brought me to do that, and I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's a really practical way to start doing things, and even for white people that have white children, even buying books with children of color in them, right? So you don't have to, ideally you want to have relationships that are deep and meaningful, but if you can't, that's a great way to start.
Look at our phone lines, they're lit up. Let's go to the phones. James joins us from Portsmouth. Hi, James, you're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Take you off speaker there. I called to comment because I suppose I'm the earliest millennial, or they call me Zennial or whatever, but my parents were raised by the generation that made immigration happen. Not immigration, integration.
Integration happened. Okay.
And they did it. They were part of the movie Remember the Titans. They went to T.C. Williams High School in Alexandria.
Okay.
And my father's father literally walked in the March on Washington with Dr. King. He was a priest. And so I grew up with this wonderful integrated worldview in the D.C. metro area, and then I emigrated to southwestern Virginia, into Stanton, which was just as white can be. And there were no people of color. And because there were no people of different colors, I didn't even know that racism existed until I moved into Hampton Roads. People started looking at me like I was a crazy person because I didn't understand what was wrong.
Okay, James, let me let our panelists, our podcasters respond to you. I understand, because James brings up a good point, and both of you have children.
Just me.
Oh, just you. Oh, you don't have children yet. Not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of raising kids and teaching them differently. That is, I believe, the point that he's getting to.
Yeah.
And what he said about living in an area where it was integrated and not knowing that racism was real goes back to what Christina always says, is that you can be in the same spaces of people but not understand their lived experience, because you're not actually having the conversations, right? That means that you really weren't having deep or connected relationships to those that had to deal with it. And there's nothing wrong with that until it comes to a point where you're faced with dealing with those folks that think differently, like going to Stanton. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had his experience. I grew up or similar. He said he grew up a little bit more he had more race exposure to it. But I didn't realize it until I came to Hampton Roads either, how pervasive racism was and the problem with it. And it wasn't until I had a relationship with someone and it was on a deeper level. I will say my husband, this is interesting, is from Houston. And as I do this work, he's like, well, I grew up so diverse. I had all these diverse friendships. And he says the same thing, though. I wasn't aware. Yeah. Because they weren't things that you talked about, right, with your friends, because we still tiptoe around the conversation of race. It's awkward, right? It can be. And as white people, we have that privilege to not necessarily know. I will say, even as I have white friends that have sons, I've watched how she's raised her son so much different than, having to have the talk. I didn't know what that was. I thought it was a sex ed talk. You know what I mean? But in black communities, we'll know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so that was just heartbreaking to hear just so how different they raised their sons. And so, but that didn't come until I was in deep relationship with someone.
So where do you take it from here? How do we spread it? Other than coming on Another View again, because we definitely have to have you back. Absolutely.
So, but we have a couple, you mean like what are we doing?
Yes.
Yeah, we have some things going on. Next week we'll be doing our podcast live at the Bearded Bird. And part of the reason
Tell us where that is.
The Bearded Bird is
in the Neon District
in Granby.
In the Neon District in Granby.
Okay. 747 Granby Street. I think
impressive.
Yeah.
What time and when? Which day?
It'll be at 6, from 6 to 8.
December
and that
6th.
is next Thursday. So we're 6 days away from that. And that's bringing what we do every Monday to the table and then getting people involved in the conversation. Because we want people to talk. But it's giving people in our own backyard the chance to talk.
We just wrote down our mission statement. And part of it was we want to challenge the conversation around race, right? Yeah. So we think that the more that you talk, we know that talking isn't enough, right? But we aren't talking. You know what I mean? We're not talking.
Yeah, because I participate in several groups, and one of the things that people say all the time is, "I'm tired of talking. I want to do." Yeah. But are we at the point where we can do? Because we maybe haven't talked enough. I don't think
so.
Well, see, but the doing comes in those little things you asked us before. Yeah. It's the little things that make a big difference. For me, it is I'm doing something a little bit opposite, where it's having culturally affirming things around my children so that they can walk confidently in a world that says your skin's not so great. For a European American, that may be diversifying, intentionally putting things in the home. So that's the doing. So if you're having those conversations with the people that can do the little things, then I think we are going beyond talking. Yeah. We are, but we don't stop talking for the sake of not seeing enough doing.
And what I can say is don't underestimate the power of small conversations, even with your children, because I know I was raised up, we didn't talk about race. We just said that I don't see color. It doesn't matter if you're purple, green, polka dots. First of all, people aren't that way, but you get the idea. So having those conversations with our kids.
I can't believe it's time. Our conversation's over. Oh my goodness. But we do want to have you guys back.
Yes,
you guys are just
definitely.
fabulous. And next Thursday, which is December the 6th, at 6 p.m.
At the Bearded Bird.
At the Bearded Bird. Okay. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Christina. And we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Claude McKnight of the group Take 6, and you're listening to Another View.
There's a new sun rising. I can see a new rising. People keep me realizing you're the biggest.
And welcome back. Born without arms, Emmanuel Manny Mitchell doesn't let circumstances hold him back. This talented rapper and inspirational speaker is motivating the masses by sharing his story and his music, all while keeping his message positive. Our Lisa Godley recently sat down with this impressive music artist, known by his fans as Gifted Hands.
And everything I'm doing's finally right for a change. I want it all. No longer will I be thinking that life is. I went through a whole time period in my life where I asked God, why me? Why do I have to be the one born without hands? That everything I'm doing's finally right for a change.
Emmanuel Manny Mitchell, aka Gifted Hands, or as he prefers, Gifted, has faced both obstacles and challenges in his young life. Born with a short right arm and without a left arm, he has experienced his share of highs and lows.
I was going through depression, and music became my outlet. When I was 13, my older brother Nate started writing for me. and he loved music. He's the one who helped me find my love and my passion for the music. He sat me down and he showed me this piece of paper and he was like, I want you to rap this.
2 years later, Gifted started writing for himself.
I got better and better at it, and I went through high school, and I was always known as the guy who rapped. At the time, they were calling me Manny. So they're like, Manny, get over here and spit some bars.
His talent didn't go unnoticed, winning several competitions along the way. But there was a problem. Even with all the recognition, Gifted was still experiencing bouts of depression.
Back in 2012, my god sister had an album release party. And at that time, I was going through suicidal thoughts. I was going through a lot of depression. And God showed me my purpose in life when I performed at that album release party, because I wanted to give up so bad. And when I was finished performing, people came up to me and said, never give up. And that really helped me increase my love for music and my love for life in general.
It was his newfound outlook that has Gifted motivating others.
If I can tell you just anything, just know that you have a purpose in life. You may not know your purpose right now, but know that you have a purpose in life. I know you want to give up. I know it's hard. It's difficult. Life is difficult in general. Life will beat you down if you let it. And some people can't really find the motivation or the inspiration to get up and just do the basic daily things that they need to do. But I'm telling you right now, if you just get up and you push, I want you to experience life. There is life outside of your pain. You just have to find the right people to talk to. You have to find the right outlets so you're not sitting and dwelling in the pain.
An outlook that's reflected in the lyrics he writes and raps.
I don't curse in my music. I decided to not curse because I wanted to make positive music that my niece and nephew could listen to every day without having to skip a song or skip a word or cover their ears at any part. I just want to inspire people to live and not just exist.
Gifted says his dream for his future doesn't include winning a Grammy or any other type of recognition from the music industry. His desire is simply to perform around the world and meet new people every day. And Gifted Hands is well on his way.
This year has been great. I really started taking this music thing seriously last June. Last June, I released my first official single. It's the first song I put on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all of it. And it's called Work With. And I've performed at the Nova, at the Scope this year for Cam Chancellor's Spring Jam. I've gone out of town and won cash prizes. I've gained more fans. I've just been excelling and showing people that you can live, you can make your dreams come true.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And Gifted released his most recent project this past September. It's titled Look Ma No Hands, and you can find it on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, and Apple Music, just to name a few places. You can also watch Gifted's video, Work With, on YouTube, and we wish him continued success. So we hope you enjoyed this edition of Another View. If you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. Next week, on Another View, Dr. Eric Claville joins us with a Claville report on the shift in power in Washington after the midterm elections. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer. And Janae Jackson answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee, and I got to tell you guys, I'm so excited. Tomorrow night, I am inducted into the Silver Circle for the Emmys. Yay! Thanks so very much for listening, everyone, to Another View.